This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hello, my name is Steve, and this is my Captain Sisay deck. Hello, this is my Captain Sisay deck. This is my favorite deck because of its versatility. I can play this deck in a lot of different environments and still have a lot of fun with it. It plays very well in one-on-one games, but still also plays very well in multiplayer games as well. And that's mainly because this deck contains a lot of different lines of victory. I have a lot of different win conditions, a lot of different kind of strategies at play, and I can kind of change it or tune it depending on my play group. I can play more fast and aggressive if I need to, or more slow and grindy if I need to as well. And I really kind of enjoy that. It kind of keeps this deck interesting for me to play too because of all the different type of win conditions, and hopefully it's interesting for my opponents because I'm not always searching up the same cards over and over again and trying to beat them the same way over and over again as well. Speaking of win conditions, I want to also add that I'm not a combo player, so I don't have any infinite combos or any instant win combos or anything like that. I like to kind of win in a more traditional manner, just beating people down and just have card advantage and stuff like that. I find that to be more fun for me. Also allows the opponent to interact more and just kind of generally, I think it's a more fun game that way. Anyways, let's start off by talking a little bit about Sisay's ability. She can tap and I can search for any legend card and put it into my hand. It's a very fun ability. It allows me to kind of put together like an all-star team of legends or commanders or EDH generals if you will, and it's kind of fun to build that way because I can kind of swap them in and, as I please depending on my metagame, kind of change it around, and it allows me to kind of breathe life into like legendary creatures that normally don't get to see play and aren't good enough to be generals on their own, but have great abilities and can really shine in this deck. So I really enjoy that. So let's start off by talking about my legendary creatures. First is Rhys for a token strategy. Leave him if you leave him unchecked for a couple turns, he can definitely make you an army. Rofellos for quick acceleration. Saffi for general resiliency and defense. She works really well at protecting Sisay and also synergizes well with a lot of my other cards in this deck too. Very nice card to have. Gaddock Teeg, for a denial strategy, great on one-on-one matches, not so good in multiplayer games because of the Hadia tracks, but if you need to buy yourself a couple turns, he's a great card to have. Mangara for control, being able to remove a permanent from the game is key, and there's a lot of ways for me to reuse him in this deck, so it's a very nice legend to have. Glissa Sunseeker, my artifact hate. She can repeatedly destroy artifacts. Great for destroying all those mana rocks that people have. She's also a 3/2 first striker, so she's a good fighter as well. Linvala. I've been destroyed by Linvala many times for me to know that she's very, very powerful against any general that relies on activated abilities, like mine or like Arkham Daxon. She's pretty much shuts all those down and also shuts down all those utility creatures that people love to play, you know, like Mother of Runes and stuff like that. So, very excellent card. Arashi, one of my favorite cards in this deck because of his rarely seen channel ability. This allows him to be an instant hurricane. I can discard him and hurricane the board at instant speed. And with Sisay out, this means I can do this at any time at my fingertips, which is a very nice kind of surprise attack. It's great against those flying generals like all the dragon generals. It's also one of my favorite consecrated Sphinx killers as well. Very nice card. Kamahl for overall beatdown, definitely a win condition on his own, being able to overrun repeatedly, and also being able to change lands into 1/1s has a lot of utility in it too, like a Wrath Deterrent. It's very nice. Yosei, one of my key cards in this deck. This is green-white, not blue, so I can't counter anything. Therefore, I can't stop combo decks from going off. The only way for me to my best line of victory against combo decks is to slow them down and then beat them down, and Yosei does both of that. He's a great beater, being a 5/5 flyer, and at the same time he has the ability to slow people down for a turn, which is great to kind of buy yourself the time and hopefully be able to knock out that combo player before he does his thing. A very key card, very useful card for me. Elesh, amazing fighter. Kills token strategies for the opponent and makes your own token strategy amazing. Works great with a lot of different legends in this deck. Rhys works great with Kamahl. Although I don't use that combo too much, where Kamahl turns lands into 1/1s and then Elesh kills them. It's a douchey strategy, but that I don't use a lot. But it's nice to kind of have that option if needed. But nonetheless, Elesh on her own is plenty good on her own. So she doesn't need to rely on cheesy stuff like that to win. Myojin of Cleansing Fire, a excellent control card. Being able to tutor him up and wear off the board is very nice. Kozilek, a win condition, being a 12/12 Annihilator. Also, being able to draw cards is key for this deck, so I can kind of keep my card advantage up. I'm green-white, so I don't have a lot of card draw. Kozilek kind of helps me keep my hand up. And he's also, he self-recurs. He shuffles himself back into the library, so therefore I can tutor him up with Sisay. Basically turning Sisay into like an Eye of Ugin, which is kind of interesting. Nice card to have. Next would be my non-legendary creatures, so Sakura-Tribe Elder for some ramp, Fauna Shaman for survival ability. I used to have survival in this deck, but I took it out because it ended up attracting too much hate. Like I said, I'm not a combo player. I don't have any instant win combos, so whenever I played survival, I just got hated off the board before I could do anything too useful. So instead, I took out survival, put in other powerful cards that don't have the same political issues as that. But Fauna Shaman still stays. Pridemage for excellent utility. Yavimaya Elder for card advantage. Eternal Witness for recursion. Stonecloaker, a great card. Being able to flash in and bounce a creature you control to save it is great. Being able to flash in to bounce itself and then exile a card from a graveyard from the game means that he's also reusable graveyard hate, which is great against those black decks. If you're playing white, I highly recommend you try out this card. Now the Reliquary, another amazing card, being able to tutor for any land. I have a lot of great utility lands in this deck, so it's a very key ability, and plus later on gets pretty big as well. So a good fighter with a good tutor attached to it. Academy Rector, a Rattlesnake, and an enchantment tutor in one. Solemn, definitely card advantage. It's especially useful in non-blue decks where you can't really draw cards, so he really shines in this type of deck. Revelark, more card advantage, being able to bring back 2 creatures is great, and the fact that I usually bring back utility creatures with this means that this card isn't just a 2-for-1, it's a many for 1, because those utility creatures bring advantage on their own with them as well, so very, very useful card. Acidic Slime for general utility. Genesis for long-term grindy games, being able to keep my hand size up by bringing back utility creatures is excellent. A very key card if I'm playing long games. Archon of Justice, a better version of Acidic Slime, I think, just because he has a better offensive capability, being a 4/4 flyer. Plus, he removes any permanent from the game, so it's great against those planeswalkers and stuff like that. Duplicate, more control in creature form, so I can tutor it up. Primeval Titan, obviously overpowered, even more overpowered when I have a lot of great utility lands in a deck like this one, so very, very useful. Sun Titan, also a great card. It's a very resilient card. I actually kind of like this more than Primeval Titan in terms of the way it plays. I can bring back, all the lands, any useful permanents, a lot of utility creatures. Very, very useful card. Next would be my non-creature spells. So first would be Soul Ring, Nature's Lore, Farseek. Now I only run the cheaper ramp spells and not the more expensive ones like Cultivate or Kodama's Reach, mainly because I want to be able to ramp out Sisay by turn 3. Those other spells, although they give me more advantage, they don't allow me to speed up casting my general, so I chose to keep those out. Next would be some any land tutors. I have Expedition Map, Sylvan Scrying, and I also have Crop Rotation. Now even though these aren't ramp spells on their own, they kind of work as quasi-ramp spells because I can go in and grab lands that speed up my tempo, like Temple of the False God or Hall of the Bandit Lord, which just kind of basically makes these ramp spells, so kind of more utility there. Next would be some creature tutors. I have Chord of Calling, Primal Command with all its great modes, Green Sun Zenith, Amari's Call, and Worldly Tutor. Now these are very important cards in this deck. Obviously it's a toolbox deck. I need to be able to access my utility creatures when I need them, so I need to have a good number of these in there. Enlightened Tutor to help me grab any artifact or enchantment. I have a lot of great enchantments in this deck, so whenever I have this, I always feel like I have lots of strategies and lots of plays I can run, so it's a very nice card. Next would be Source of Power Shores, And then Linguify. The reason why I have this in is because it's enchantment, so it can be tutored up. It's also permanent, so it plays nice with Sun Titan and Genesis Wave. And it's also just fun to turn creatures into trees, especially generals. Good card overall. Seal Primordium, kind of similar to Linguify except for artifacts and enchantments. Beast Within, it destroys any permanent. It's a very versatile card. Always save this for the very end. Don't waste this on any minor targets. Return to Dust, very efficient removal. Krosan Grip, another lifeline against combo decks. Being able to destroy a key combo piece when I need to is very important. Because like I said, I'm very weak against combo decks, so I need to be able to control them somehow. Next would be Austere Command, a very versatile wrath. Whenever you cast this, you almost always come up ahead. Catastrophe, a very unique wrath effect, because usually you only cast wraths when you're behind and you need to wipe the board in so you can kind of catch up that way. Well, Catastrophe has an excellent ability of has an excellent Armageddon option too. So now you can also use this card when you're ahead and you want to go for the win. So this card is one of the few wrath effects that isn't only good when you're behind, but it's also good when you're ahead. So very useful card there. Sensei's Top, I do a lot of tutoring, therefore I do a lot of shuffling, so I almost always get to look at 3 new cards. Sylvan Libraries, similar to the top. This is one of my favorite cards in the game, really. I mean, it's so much fun being able to draw 3 cards and then have the choice of putting them back. It's so empowering and so satisfying. I really enjoy this card. It's a very fun one to play. Mori's Wake. I chose this over Mana Reflection because it also has the aggressive kind of Crusader ability, so now not only can I ramp up and cast bombs, but I can also fight and have like a more aggressive strategy as well, so good versatile card. Genesis Wave, obviously very powerful, everybody knows how great it is. It's has an interesting function in this deck because it allows my deck to kind of play a little more chaosy because I get to flip cards. I mean, normally I'm a tutor deck, but this is a kind of a win condition that if I draw, I really try to wrap my deck around it and kind of really make this my key strategy and kind of make it shine. So it's kind of fun that way. It's a nice, adds a nice different element of victory in my deck. Life from the Loam to bring back my lands. Crucible Worlds to bring back my lands. I normally don't put Crucible in decks because it generates a lot of hate, but in this deck there's a lot of really good lands that it was hard for me to ignore, so I chose to put it in. 1000-Year Elixir, a very useful card in this deck. It's a good tempo boost. Being able to use my activated abilities a turn quicker is basically meaning I'm ramping up because almost all my creatures have utility, and being able to use them twice is obvious advantage as well. So tempo boost plus card advantage in one, very key. Nim Death Mantle for resiliency, very useful card. I find this to be a staple, quickly becoming a staple in almost all my decks. It also gives +2/+2 and Intimidate, which is not nothing too, so it's a decent card overall. Birthing Pod, fun card to have. I like drawing this card because it really kind of changes my play style when I have this out. Now instead of just playing normally, now I'm thinking about how can I move up the chain. It's a really nice change of pace when I draw it. Jite, one of the more famous equipments in the game. It's a legendary artifact, so I can actually search this up by Sisay, which is amazing. I like this card a lot as kind of a political positioning card. I'm able to kind of throw this card out there when and kind of keep my board presence up, and because if you have nothing on your board, then people kind of like pick on you and just throw utility creatures at you. So you want to have a certain power level, but not so much to kind of make yourself the alpha threat. And Jite really kind of is able to kind of keep yourself in the middle zone and not be ganged up on. Another nice thing about it, it's kind of a standalone powerful card, so that even if somebody blows it up, I don't feel too sad. It doesn't I don't need it for any combos or any synergies. It just works well on its own, and if it dies, well, okay, I can continue on with my game now. So it's a very good card overall. Mindslaver. I like to another legendary artifact, and search this up by Sisay. I like to kind of refer to this as like my nuclear warhead of my deck. The reason for that is because I use this rarely. I only use this against players that are deserving, mainly combo decks that are about to go off, or particular douchebags. And at the same time, kind of like a nuclear warhead, there's a lingering effect as well. If you Mindslaver too much, if you do this every single game, opponents will learn to just continually hate you, and the hate will linger into the next game. And then now you're starting to lose games that you normally you get hated out of games that you normally wouldn't have if you didn't haven't casted Mindsaver for 100 times. So it's kind of important to kind of judge that when you're playing this. Don't overuse it, or you do kind of put yourself in like a poor political position permanently. Just kind of keep use it sparingly, and just kind of make sure you're having fun while you're doing it. So that's kind of a key philosophy when you're playing these type of decks. Alright, next would be my lands. I have Marsh Flats, Windswept Heath, and also Verdant Catacombs. I have these here so I can grab my dual lands. Next would be some Fixing, some Petal Grove, Command Tower, Wooded Bastion, Horizon Canopy, which I love for its Mindstone effect. Also, I have some dual lands. I have Temple Garden and Savannah. Now, I normally don't put dual lands in my 2-color decks. They're a little. I don't really feel like they're necessary in just 2-color decks. But this deck there is a need for them because I run a lot of colors utility lands. I need to be able, and I find myself getting color screwed a lot. So having these dual lands definitely helps me with that problem. So they're in here. They have quite an important role. Next would be some legendary lands. I have Ejanel Castle. I have Flagstones of Choker, which is great against land destruction, Pendlehaven, and I also have Okina. I usually use these if I'm playing kind of trying to play a more slow grindy game and I have Sisay out, but I don't want to do anything that attracts too much attention, but I don't want to waste their activations. I usually tutor up for these lands. They're very non-threatening, and they kind of keep my my land drops going, so they're quite useful there. Next would be my general non-basics. I have some cycle lands. I have a Dried Arbor. Like I said earlier, I have a lot of creature tutors in this deck, and this basically turns all my creature tutors into land tutors, kind of stealing the legacy trick, turns my green Sun Zenith into a ramp spell. So it's kind of nice to have that. It is fragile, but just kind of know that understand that when you're casting it, and you'll be fine. Gaea's Cradle, quite a sentimental card to me, actually. This card is actually the reason why I started playing EDH. I had this card in my collection for the longest time. I always wanted to try to find a way to use it, but I never could. And then I learned about EDH, and I'm like, perfect. I can now start using these old cards that I normally never get a chance to. And therefore, I started building this deck and started getting into the game. So this card is definitely a key reason why I'm playing EDH now. And it's kind of just it's why I enjoy EDH. It kind of reminds me why I enjoy EDH. As a whole, I'm able to use these old cards that normally would never get a chance to use, and kind of have fun with them, and that's really what Magic's all about, right? Just have fun, enjoy it. It's a card game, and really kind of, I think EDH really kind of iconifies that. So Gaea's Cradle has quite a sentimental value for me for that. Anyways, for this deck, it's particularly useful because it's a legendary land, so I can search it up by Sisay, and obviously it provides an amazing ramp ability. Next would be Temple of False God for some more acceleration. I have Mistveiled Plains for some recursion. It's a plain, so I can fetch it up. Petrified Field to grab my lands back. Homeward Path, my silver bullet against blue decks. All those evil blue guys that like to steal and bribery and treachery and all that stuff, well, this is my answer to them. It's a really nice political card. You can kind of wait for a blue player to bribery somebody else, take somebody things, and then you can kind of come in, Homeward Path, give everybody back, and kind of become the hero of the table. A very nice card to have in your deck if you're not playing blue. Mirror in the Moaning Well, legendary land. So you can search up by Sisay. It's a sack outlet plus its life gain. It does a lot of this deck. High Market is my sack outlet number 2. Hollow the Bandit Lord, again searchable by Sisay. Gives my creatures haste, so it's a great tempo boost. Very rare to be able to get. It's very hard to give haste in a green-white deck, so this is a very key card. Yavimaya Hollow to regenerate my creatures. Maze of Ith, one of the best defensive cards in the game. Core Haven, my Maze of Ith number 2, that happens to be tutorable by Sisay, which makes it even more accessible. Wasteland for land destruction, and also Strip Mine for land destruction. And then finally I have my basics. I have 7 forests, and I have 3 plains. So that concludes my deck. I hope you guys enjoy it. Sisay is a lot of fun to play. I hope you guys try it out. If you have any comments, please feel free to throw them down. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching CMDR decks. Please rate and subscribe.